Let me tell you about the most important job interview you will ever have. You will not be in the room for it, you will not even know it happened. It lasts about 6 seconds, and the thing conducting it is not a person. You upload your resume, you click apply, and somewhere, in less time than it takes to read this sentence, a piece of software has already decided whether a human being will ever see your name. This is not the future. This is hiring. Right now, at almost every large company you would actually want to work for, they do not have a choice, really. A single popular job can pull 10,000 applications. No team of humans can read 10,000 of anything. So the machine reads them instead. It sorts, it scores, it ranks. And most of the pie is quietly killed before a recruiter drinks their first coffee. The question is not whether this is happening. It is whether the machine is any good and whether it is fair. So today I want to tell you a true story. The story of a hiring machine built by one of the smartest companies on earth that taught itself to reject women and that nobody programmed to do it. And then I want to show you what one city decided to do about it. Let us start with the story, because it is almost too perfect. The year is 2014. The company is Amazon. Amazon has a problem that sounds like a good problem. Too many applicants. It is growing at a terrifying speed, and hiring is slow, human, and expensive. So a team of engineers sets out to fix it, the way Amazon fixes everything. Automate it. The dream was simple, and honestly, kind of beautiful. Build an engine where you pour in resumes at the top, and out of the bottom comes a ranked list. 5 stars for the future star hire, 1 star for the no. Like the product reviews, but for people. And to build a machine that recognizes a great candidate, you first have to show it what great looks like. So, how do you do that? You feed it examples, lots of them. You give it 10 years of resumes the company had already received. You point at the ones who got hired and you say, more like these. And that one step, which sounds completely reasonable, is where the whole thing quietly went wrong. Because think about who worked in tech over that decade. Think about who those winning resumes actually belong to. Overwhelmingly, men. The industry was, and largely still is, lopsided. So the pile of good examples the machine was told to imitate was itself lopsided before anyone had typed a single line of code. And the machine did exactly what it was told. It studied the winners, it looked for what they had in common. And it concluded with cold and flawless logic that one of the things great candidates had in common was that they were not women. Now here is the part people get wrong. Nobody at Amazon wrote a rule that said penalize women. There was no evil line of code. No engineer typed that. That is simply not how these systems work. And that is exactly what makes them dangerous. The machine found the pattern on its own, and it started acting on it in ways that are almost eerie to read about. It reportedly learned to downgrade a resume if it contained the word women's, as in women's chess club captain, as in member of the women's rugby team. It reportedly marked down graduates of 2 all-women's colleges, just for that. The name of the school was enough. The candidate could have been brilliant. The machine did not care, because in its data, that pattern had pointed away from a hire. And sit with how invisible that is. A woman applies. She is qualified. She is maybe the strongest applicant in the entire stack. And she is silently pushed down the list, not for anything she did, but for a word on her resume that a machine had quietly learned to distrust. She never finds out. She just never hears back. Amazon's engineers noticed, and to their credit, they tried to fix it. They edited the system to ignore those specific words. But that only patched the symptoms they could actually see. And they realized they could never be sure the machine had not simply found new, subtler stand-ins for the same bias, sneakier proxies they had not caught yet. So in 2018, writers reported the ending. Amazon had quietly scrapped the project. The dream machine was switched off. One of the most capable engineering organizations in human history tried to build a fair hiring AI and could not, in the end, trust the thing it had built. And here is the lesson that should genuinely scare you. It is not that Amazon was careless, it is that they were careful. These were brilliant engineers who were actively trying to build something fair, and it went wrong anyway, silently, from the inside. If the smartest, best resourced team in the business could not just eyeball their way to a fair machine, Then the small company using an off-the-shelf hiring tool it barely understands has no chance of catching it by feel. Good intentions are not a method, which is the entire reason we need a real one. Now, before you file this away as one company's embarrassing mistake, understand why it is the exact opposite. It is a preview. Because the same recipe that poisoned Amazon's machine is running underneath modern hiring almost everywhere. Here is the recipe. Step 1. Take your historical hiring data. Step 2. Quietly assume the past was fair. Step 3. Train a machine to reproduce it. And every company sitting on a biased history, which is very nearly all of them, is one training run away from building the same monster. Most will simply never audit it hard enough to notice. So let us name the symptoms, the warning signs that a hiring machine has gone wrong. Because they are always the same four, and once you know them, you spot them instantly. Symptom 1. The proxy. The system is told it may not look at gender or race or age. So it finds something that quietly travels with them instead. A name, a postcode, a gap in a work history, which very often means someone stepped out to raise a child. The all-women's college. The machine never sees the forbidden trait. It just finds its shadow, and it treats the shadow exactly the same way. Symptom 2. It looks objective. And this is the real poison. A hiring manager's gut feeling looks like bias, and we have learned to challenge it. A number on a dashboard looks like science. It arrives wearing a lab coat. Same old prejudice, but now it is quantified, ranked, and almost impossible to argue with. Symptom 3. Silence. The rejected never know. There is no letter that says, a model scored you 2 out of 5, and no human ever looked. There is only the void, no feedback, no reason, no appeal. Which means the bias generates no complaints. Which means, from the outside, it looks like everything is working perfectly. Symptom 4. Scale. A biased human interviewer can only hurt the people sitting in front of them that day. A biased algorithm is copied across every job, every office, every applicant, instantly and forever. It does not have a bad day and a good day. It is wrong in the exact same way, 100,000 times over. So that is the disease. A machine trained on an unfair past, quietly reproducing it at enormous scale, wearing the mask of math, while the people it rejects never even learn they were in the room. The obvious question is, what on earth do you do about it? And that answer is the whole reason for this video. You audit it. Now, in fairness, let me put the strongest case for the other side. The humans these machines replaced were not neutral either. A tired recruiter skimming resumes at 5 in the evening is absolutely full of bias too. So the real question was never machine versus some perfect fair human. It was machine versus flawed human. And here is the twist that flips the whole thing over. You can audit the machine. You can measure exactly what it does, group by group, and put it on the record. You could never in a million years put a recruiter's gut feeling under a microscope like that. The machine's great weakness, that it is cold and mathematical, turns out to be its one great strength. Cold, mathematical things can be checked. And that is the door the whole idea of an audit walks through. And honestly, we have known the shape of the fix for far longer than we have had this problem. Go back to the 1970s. American orchestras were overwhelmingly male, and everyone had a comfortable explanation. Men were simply the better players. Then orchestras started doing something radical at auditions. They put up a screen. The judges could hear the musician, but could not see them. And the results moved. Once the panel could no longer see who was playing, they became far more willing to advance and hire women, same musicians, same talent. The only thing that changed was that the bias lost its foothold. That is the whole idea in miniature. You do not fix bias by asking people to be fairer. You fix it by measuring outcomes and removing the thing prejudice grabs onto. An audit is that screen, rebuilt for the age of the algorithm. Now I have to be precise here, because a bias audit for hiring is not a vibe. It is not someone glancing at the code and nodding along. It is a specific, almost boringly mathematical procedure. And once you see how it works, you cannot unsee it. It goes like this. You do not ask the machine what it thinks. You do not trust its intentions for a second. You look only at what it actually did to real groups of people and you measure that. Outcomes, not promises. Step 1. Take the tool's decisions and split the candidates into groups, men and women, different racial and ethnic groups, and crucially, the intersections, black women, Asian men. Because bias loves to hide in the corners where two categories quietly meet. Step 2. For each group, you calculate the selection rate. Out of everyone in this group who applied, what fraction did the machine pass forward? So if the tool advanced 1 in 5 women, the selection rate for women is 20%. You do that carefully for every group. Step 3, and this is the beating heart of it. You compare. You take the group the machine liked most, the one with the highest selection rate, and you divide every other group's rate by it. And the number you get has a name. It is called the impact ratio. Let me make it concrete. Say the machine advances men at a rate of 50% and women at a rate of 30%. 30 divided by 50 is 0.6. So the impact ratio for women is 0.6. Now, is 0.6 good or bad? For that, the field reaches for an old, blunt, and surprisingly powerful yardstick. It is called the 4/5 rule. It comes out of decades of American employment law and it says something almost childishly simple. Every group's selection rate should be at least 4/5, that is 80% of the top group's rate. 80% is the floor. Drop below 0.8 and the law treats it as a red flag for what it calls adverse impact. A sign the tool may be discriminating no matter what anyone intended. So look back at our example. Women landed at 0.6, the floor is 0.8. That tool just failed the audit out loud in a single number that anybody can check. And that is the quiet magic of the whole method. It turns a vague, deniable worry into a hard measurement, pass or fail, on the record. And here is the crucial part, the part that makes it real instead of theater. The audit cannot be run by the company that built the tool or the company using it, cheerfully grading its own work. It has to be independent, a genuine third party. Someone with no reason at all to love the answer. Because think about the alternative. A company checking its own hiring machine has every incentive to check gently, to test it the flattering way, and to quietly bury the result if it turns out ugly. Independence is not a nice to have here. It is the whole ballgame. Take it away and the audit means precisely nothing. So now we have the disease and we have the cure. A precise, independent measurement of what the machine actually does to real people, which leaves exactly one question. If the cure already exists, who is going to make anyone actually take it? Because for years, the honest answer was nobody. And that is where a single city changed the game for the entire world. Not a country, not a superpower, a city. New York City. Back in 2021, New York passed a law with a deeply unglamorous name, Local Law 144. And it did something no American law had ever done before. It made the bias audit mandatory. It took effect at the very start of 2023, and active enforcement began that July. And here is what it actually demands. If you are an employer using an automated tool to help decide who gets hired or promoted inside New York City, you now carry 3 hard obligations. Obligation 1. You must get an independent bias audit of that tool every single year, done by an outside auditor, not by yourself. It is exactly the measurement we just walked through, carried out for real on a fixed schedule. Obligation 2. And this one has teeth you can actually feel. You must publish the result. A summary of that audit goes up on your public website where anybody can read it, including, by the way, the very people applying for the job, the selection rates, the impact ratios, right out in the open. Just think about what that does. Even if a tool quietly flunks the 4/5 test, that failure now has to be posted anyway. For competitors, for journalists, for candidates, all to see. It is sunlight written into law. And these summaries are not vague reassurances. A proper one lays out the numbers, the selection rate for each group of candidates, the impact ratio for each of them, measured against the group the tool favored most, Often the raw counts as well. Anyone who can read a simple table can, for the first time, look at the exact machine judging them and see whether it clears the bar or does not. That has quite simply never been possible before. Obligation 3. You have to tell the candidates. At least 10 business days before you run someone through the machine, you must notify them that an automated tool is going to be used on their application. The secret interview stops being a secret. People finally get to know the machine is in the room. And none of this is a polite suggestion. Break the law, and the penalties begin at $500 per violation and climb to $1,500 for each one after that. And because every single day and every single candidate can count as its own separate violation, that meter runs frighteningly fast. There is one more clever detail worth knowing. The law reaches further than it first appears. It covers employers with a presence in New York City even when the role itself is fully remote. So a company hiring for a work from anywhere job, but based in the city, is still on the hook. In a remote world, one city's rule casts a very long shadow. Now, is local law fundful for perfect? Absolutely not. Critics point to real holes. Companies get to define some of the key terms themselves. There are ways to argue that a given tool does not quite count. Some of the published audits have been thin. It is a first draft, and first drafts always leak. But do not let the imperfections hide the sheer size of what happened here. For the very first time, a bias audit went from something a good company might choose to do to something the law requires it to do, in public. On pain of a fine, the default flipped. And that, honestly, is the whole story. And New York was the crack in the dam, not the flood itself. Because the moment one place proved this could actually be done, everyone else started to move. In America, the federal equal employment regulators have made it plain. If your hiring tool discriminates, you are liable. Full stop. It does not matter that a vendor built it and a machine ran it. Illinois already regulates AI that analyzes video job interviews, the ones that score your face and your voice while you talk. Other states are drafting their own versions right now. And across the Atlantic, Europe has gone further still, formally classifying AI used in hiring as high risk, which drags it into the very heaviest tier of oversight the continent has. Strip away the different flags and the legal dialects, and every one of these is reaching for the same handful of ideas. That a machine making a decision this important cannot be a sealed black box. That someone independent has to check it. That the results are not allowed to stay hidden. And that a human being, somewhere, has to stay responsible for the outcome. So let me bring this all the way back to you. Standing there, phone in hand, clicking apply. Here is what has genuinely changed. It used to be that the machine judged you in total secret, and you had no idea it even existed, let alone any right to question it. That is ending, slowly, unevenly, city by city, but ending, and the audit is the reason. It is the tool that pries the black box open and forces it to show, in plain and public numbers, whether it is actually treating people fairly. And it hands you, the applicant, something you have never had before: leverage. In a city like New York, you can now be told in advance that a machine is about to screen you. You can go and read the audit that machine had to publish. You can see, in black and white, whether it treats people like you fairly before you ever hit apply. A decision that used to happen to you in the dark is slowly becoming something you can actually inspect. That is not a small shift, that is a quiet transfer of power. And that is why all this unglamorous, deeply technical, 4/5 rule machinery genuinely matters. It is not really about compliance, or paperwork, or law. It is about whether the most important decisions in your life are allowed to be made by something that will never once have to explain itself. Amazon's machine got switched off because, in the very end, even Amazon could not trust it. And the whole point of an audit is this: you should not have to trust it either. You should be able to check. And now, at last, increasingly, someone has to.